Hello?
Hello.
Oh, sorry. Good evening. I thought my mic had an issue. Good evening.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I guess we can start. I'm not sure if Felix will be joining us today. And are you okay with, can we start, Chase?
Yeah, I guess so. We do have Light Client here. He's able to merge stuff.
Okay. All right then. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to RPC call standard. RPC standard call. And we have a lot of things on our agenda today, but I just wanted to give a quick update on the things I said I was going to do last 2 weeks. So the two PRs had to get the EL and the CLDLs to take a look at. I've had like positive feedback, although ACDC was postponed last week. So I'm still trying to figure out how to get more client devs to look into it. That's all from my end. I guess. Okay, sorry about that. But I would also like to give a quick. I have a question about the error codes. I don't know if Sims can make a quick update on that before I ask my question.
Yeah, Mousy. So based on the previous reviews, we decided to go spec-shin route, and I did modify the PR. Now it just uses the new Go tooling and does not use the extensions anymore. Um, I think, yeah, the functionality remains same. I validated it. I also wrote tests to make sure everything is sticking to our expectations. I did speak to Zane. Zane mentioned he is in talk with Litecoin. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's the direction here. Would appreciate if Felix reviewed it. But yeah, but the changes are done, in short.
Uh, So I just had like because I was trying to look at it, and although I don't have like strong opinions on what should be in the error codes or not. So my first question is it okay for two groups to define the same code? Like what if a method reference both groups? Which error wins? I don't know what I'm saying. It's making
Right.
sense.
Yeah. I just saw the message. I did not get a chance to respond, but it is ultimately transformed into an array. So there is no collision. Both of them will be present in the method. But we do, or we can actually have a validation that checks based on the ranges, and the ranges don't overlap. But inherently, it'll apply the validation to the error codes. That should be a small change. I can actually update it. That was a good catch. I'll do that. Thank you, Mercy.
Okay. The last thing is I let me finish typing. We are using. Is it not possible? I'm not a Go dev, so I don't really know much. But from the last thing, this thing, should it be this? Shouldn't it be this format? I posted something on the chat.
Um, it's just error. Sorry, I don't catch what exactly you're saying.
I'm talking about the error wrapping.
Oh yeah. That's a standard one. Yes. If you
So
want to return a custom error, we usually wrap it with a header ref.
yeah, my question is, shouldn't we use the one I posted on the chat, like for consistent, like for error wrapping to preserve like error chain?
I see what you mean. Give me a sec.
Because the old style we are using is um hold on.
I have to. Okay, I can chat with you async on this. I need to get a little bit more context. Uh,
Oh,
sure. I can address these. These are minor for sure.
okay. So I don't know if anyone has something else to say in regards to the error code PR. If someone else had the opportunity to look at it. Okay, in case we didn't, I can drop the PR link so that it will be easier for us to review while on call. And
Thank you.
that's so apart from these two things, I don't really have any much thing else to say. So okay, I think I'll ping Felix if he's available so that he can also take a look at it. Chase, I don't know if you have the time to also take a look at it.
I mean, it generally looks good to me, but Felix usually has a lot of input and that I overlook. So we should get him to look at it.
Okay, thank you. So back to the agenda for today. Last week we talked about versioning and then the spec and the docs. Although I can't see Zane on the call, think we can skip that. And we have like a lot of open issues and PR we need to talk to. We need to look into. And I'm not sure how we're going to go about that now since Felix isn't on the call. Chase, can you please help me out? Because I'm not really sure how to handle it right now.
I mean, I can't force Felix to join the call.
Yeah, I'm saying, do you have like another alternative we can like take a look at this and then make a decision or something else we can do? Because I think we are just trying to like declutter the issues and the stealth barriers we had so far.
I mean, we can go through them and discuss them and give like a summary or um if there are PRs that are ready, we could ask like clients to provide input, but I don't know.
Okay, can I share this link? I think this is ready. The first one we have on the list. PR 761.
Yeah, I mean that one's mine and it's already technically has an approval. This means if that gets merged though, there's a PR in Hive that also needs to get merged. I don't know if like clients can do that. Probably not.
Okay, so the thing, the whole point of this will kind of like have to hold on a little bit since Felix is not here, and I'm not sure if like clients will be willing to. Uh, I'm not sure if Lifeline is with us or I don't know. Apart from these PRs, I don't really have any much things on the agenda. So unless someone else has something else to bring up, which is not yet on the agenda that has to do with this open issues of PRs.
So I don't really have anything, but Tulio, I know that you previously had an opinion on the debugs. Um, I have a new PR. If you wanna say anything on it, that would be nice. I went into the ETH Magicians and I pinged everyone there about EIP 3155. Um, I asked Marius for input as well, but he's very busy with all the DevNet stuff. So I'm basically just waiting for feedback and opinions on that one.
Okay, Chase, I'll take a look and let you know.
Yeah,
In
no pressure. I assume this
Okay.
is going to be an uphill battle no matter what, so it's all good.
No, okay. I will take a look and reply there, if anything.
Hey, guys. So relatively new here, at least to this meeting. I came last week, or sorry, the week before, since this is biweekly. With respect to PRs and code reviews and soliciting feedback or calls for feedback, um, is there a is there like a general sentiment or like an idea uh, or some sort of like process in terms of how like AI agents, whether or not it's Cursor, Claude. I've done more with like ETH Panda Ops just because I work in infrastructure. And I know like that, for example, they use I think it's Claude skills or Claude commands or Claude rules, so that you could just like comment at Claude or Cursor or whatever on the PR and say, hey, review this. And then according to some set of standards, whether or not it's like, Felix's uh, general, like, sort of like thoughts and ideas or insights into how he thinks about um, code reviewing or anyone else, Chase, Mercy, like anyone else, also incorporating. So it's all kind of like version controlled. So yeah, it's a lot of words to say. Is there any like has there been any thought to applying AI or incorporating more like AI agents just so you can get that first level of feedback and then like others can kind of come in and provide like maybe the more finer insights and corrections or feedback.
I mean, it hasn't come up on any of the calls, and no one has put any effort, as far as I'm aware, into like doing GitHub actions for like automated pull request reviews and things like that. Um, I'm not against it. I find them very useful, but others may have other opinions. I don't know.
Okay, I have something to say. I don't know if it's of any importance, but I feel like, okay, if we are going to like incorporate that, we should at least section out the repo a little bit. For example, the versioning we are trying to um get into place, and then the error codes. I think these are like the kind of things we need to properly figure out before we can set up an AI agent or skills.md stuffs like that, so that we'll be able to like say, okay, properly map it out per se. But I'm not sure how it totally works because I've not like used them before. But I think the next because we just recently merged the RPC test gen to the execution repo. So there are some things we still need to figure out first before we can then introduce the agent into the repo itself.
Yeah, I mean, as far as versioning goes, like I noticed no one's really said anything on the ETH R&D or the ETH Magicians, even though you opened a thing. Um, I think it's going to be very hard. Oh, Felix is pinging me. I think it's going to be really hard to do the endpoint versioning. Um, like I think we should focus on getting a GitHub release of the spec out first. I think that should be our first priority, honestly. But how many more things do we need to fix before we can release like a V1? I don't really know. Or we
Yeah,
can just release like an alpha or something. Like it doesn't matter.
yeah. During last 2 weeks call, we had this because on the website we wanted to have like a toggle button that you can like toggle between the various versions that was previously released. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Hey Felix, good afternoon.
Oh,
been
sorry
waiting.
for being late to this. Chase notified me, fortunately.
Welcome.
Yeah, it so happens that you're the one driving this call. So we had like a lot of issues and PRs we need to like go through together so that I will know the ones I need to bring up to ACDC or ACDA as the case may be. Let me share the link. No, I share the agenda link. So the list of the PRs are the ones we were unable to look at from last 2 weeks. Do you want me to share my screen?
No, I got it. I got it. I'm
Okay.
really sorry. I have to. I just have to like frantically set up everything here. I was like really not prepared for this. Okay. Yeah. Okay. The screen share is up now. So this. Oh my God, that's a lot. Yeah. So I guess that you guys already heard the update on the error codes, or is that the next item, or what are we?
Yeah, we've heard the update from Sims. Although we
Mhm.
still want your input on what we have so far.
Yeah. I mean, definitely it requires some review, but what I saw just from the notification, I mean, I got a GitHub notification about it and I looked a little bit into it. So I'm basically, I mean, I saw that it was integrated and I took like a short look. So it seems like the tool is now extended to use these files, which is kind of good. I think this is good for us and it applies some checks on it. So what is the input that is needed from me? Basically, if it's ready or
Yeah, I got 2 comments from Mercy. It's a quick fix. I can fix that. But if you think everything else is okay, I can post the update later today or tomorrow, so we can merge
yeah.
this.
I mean, it seems to be okay. I would like to take a look at the output, which I cannot do just right now, but I will do it after this call, definitely.
Sure. Yeah.
To see
No
what the
worries.
output really looks like. But I think this integration now looks very clean to me. So we have these files, and I mean, yeah, they are nice. It's also, I mean, it's kind of done in the same way that the generator also operates now with like having basically these. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit. I kind of wonder what's the point of having like these multiple files now when, I mean, basically every file just has one group. So we could also just have like a single file that has all of the arrow groups. But yeah, I guess that's just like a
Yeah, I mean,
add-on.
specifically left it like that so it's easy to navigate, and when a lot of error codes are added or determined, it'll be easier. But yeah, I mean, I think that works too.
For me, it doesn't really matter. It's just more like I mean, the tool doesn't care either because it just reads all of the files into the same namespace.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I
Yeah.
think it's okay. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think looks very good now. I mean, this is definitely a lot simpler than what we had before in terms of the logic. And yeah, I mean, I will check out the output after the call. So that's my update to
Sounds good. Yeah. No worries. Thank you.
Okay, so now we are supposed to check the PRs, or yeah. Should we maybe first go through these ones here? The ones that
Yeah.
are like listed on the agenda. So we have this one, which is from Chase, and it
So yeah, I can speak to it if you want me to, but like someone made a PR to Go Ethereum. That's the ref to fix Go Ethereum because Go Ethereum was failing the Hive tests. Marius reviewed the PR and said, "This is dumb. I think the spec is wrong." So I looked at it and I think that I agree that the spec is wrong. But
yeah.
then Light Clients now is asking, can clients just delete it? And like I honestly don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, this is not something that is like, it's not such an easy decision to make as is like changing it. I think that the is kind of, I mean, I agree, especially if Mikhail also made a comment here. I mean, he approved it and he is the author of these specs, so I think it's fine. We can just merge this.
I mean,
This
I did ask in the steel testing for all the consensus layer clients to look. I asked for everyone to look at it. I didn't really get any feedback. It's
I
just
mean,
an
it shouldn't make too much difference for them.
yeah. It's just an error code, right?
The
So
payload.
here.
So yeah, I mean, it's okay. Let's just see how what it does to the test. I mean, for now, I think we can just, I mean, we can merge this. Mika gave the okay, so I think that's enough. We don't have to raise it all the way to the top with this one. There is the this one. This is kind of hard to make a decision on, I feel. I mean, basically nobody has commented on this. So basically from a workflow perspective, this pull request or this issue is asking us to consider adding a method, but there are no further comments on this issue. So it's a bit like, what are we supposed to do here? We can consider it, but that doesn't have any action.
Yeah, I think we can just leave this one for now.
Yeah, this is not like an actionable issue for us now. This one, yes, this is good one. I actually put the triage label, but I put that last year, so I guess we can remove that now. It is that the problem is that the delegations, I mean the authorizations, sorry, require a signature, and there have been some attempts from users to raise this to us that they would like to specify authorizations when, for example, estimating the gas, which are not signed, so that they do not have to pre-sign an authorization when it could fail or something like that. So it has a, but the problem is that the EIP 7702 does not specify a schema for these basically unsigned authorizations. So we would have to invent something. Basically, just to refresh everyone's memory here a little bit, I'm not sure if everyone is super aware of what this looks like, but basically for EIP 7702, we have these. Yeah, I'm not sure. It doesn't have like a clear place that I can point to right now. So I guess we can also look here into our own spec, and so yeah, the 7702 transaction has the authorization list, and each authorization here has a chain ID, nonce, and address, and then it has these values, which are the signature values, and these values are required. So the authorization list is also an input parameter to a call, because for these ETH call operations and ETH estimate gas, we basically, the input is basically a what's called a generic transaction. and I'm not 100% sure where this is defined, but yeah, so it's defined here, and the generic transaction contains an authorization list. So now the problem is this would be a case where the input to ETH call and the input to send transaction presumably differ, in the sense that for when sending a transaction, you want them to submit a signed authorization, whereas when they are performing a call, you want them to submit this other type of authorization that is basically not signed, but it specifies who is the signer. Because unfortunately for the 7702 authorizations, the signer address is determined from the signature itself. So basically, we would need another version of the authorization list, which contains, instead of these fields, contains something like the sender address or something. And then this would be the input to the ETH call. So it would be kind of a larger spec change. Yeah, anyway, that's what this is about. I can also, I mean, to be honest, I didn't elaborate on it too much in the issue. I just made it more like a note, because this came up a bunch of times also in Geth development, that people were asking about this feature. And I was just thinking, yeah, at some point we will get to this. So that's why I made the note. Anyway, I don't know how big the need is for this to be there. I mean, we don't get a lot of questions about it, definitely. Just recently, I think we got one. Someone asked about it again. So does anyone have an input on this, or?
I mean, so it sounds like basically what you're saying is we need to extend the schema to have a sudo authorization list that accepts a sender address.
Yes. And then we need to make sure that basically, in general, it could be an opportunity to clean up a little bit the schema for the call input data to distinguish it from the transactions, because the input to a call is subtly different from a real transaction, also in other ways. For example, this is something that is, I think, also a little bit confusing. So for example, here in the scheme, on the schema side, we have this generic transaction that is supposed to contain the fields which are generic to all types. So this is sort of, if you will, it's the base type of all transactions. And then here you have it, like the way we define transactions generally, I always found that a bit obtuse in some ways, but I mean, some other people might consider it elegant, but basically we have this huge alternation here that basically has these complex objects, like one for each transaction type. And then the types each define some of their own fields, but then they also include, so for example, here we have the signed transaction, and that has the signature values, the VR and S, and also includes via the all of construction the fields of the unsigned legacy transaction, which, let's see where that is. Not super sure. Yeah. So, and then that one. So interestingly, here we repeat it. So we actually don't use this generic transaction too much. It's a bit like, yeah. So if we see the generic transaction is yeah, so this is kind of the problem. So the problem is that we have multiple methods. We have, for example, the method ETH sign transaction. Technically, that's like a whole other can of worms why we even have that, but this one takes the generic transaction right now. And it's the same for the ETH send transaction, which also takes a generic transaction, but also ETH call and ETH estimate gas, they also use generic transaction. So basically, we would have to come up with another schema that is not called generic transaction, but something like call input or something. But it would be almost the same as generic transaction, just it has some differences, including the authorization list. And then possibly in the future, more differences will come up. We actually had in the past some more questions like this, like can certain things be supported in the call which are not supported in transaction? And like it just sometimes comes up anyways. I don't want to dwell on this too much. I mean, we don't have that much time on the call, and also I was late, so I'm just curious if anyone has some input here, like maybe from Aragon or I don't know.
Yeah, I think this could be a good chance to define, I don't know, something like a generic call type, which applies to the if call, if estimate gas, and probably others. I don't know, call bundles, if all things like that.
Yeah.
I think it depends a lot on how many requests we have for this. I think if it's a
Yeah, I mean, you could search it in your own issue tracker. So this is maybe
okay,
something how I would like to end this discussion now. It's like I'm not sure if also
yeah, yeah.
Netherlands is on the call, but for sure you guys sometimes will get some requests like this also. So we can just take a note here that says so yeah, and I mean I would just request that you guys could somehow maybe make a comment here on the issue or something if you find it useful or if you want this, and I mean we can certainly make this change, but I mean the need is not very pressing, let me say it like that. It's just a nitpicky kind of thing where it would be nice, but yeah.
We can also drop it like on the channel, the execution channel.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. I'm just wondering if really there are that many people who really deeply care about specifying authorizations in ETH call. It's one of the things that we noted is that at least in Go Ethereum, we also have a feature in ETH call which allows overriding the state, which means which makes this redundant in some ways because you can just install the delegations to the state directly via the overrides. Or if you use ETH simulate v1, you can also just override the state to have the delegations as if the authorizations have succeeded. So in some ways, this is also redundant with this. This is maybe the other thing we should consider is that if there is some kind of override facility for ETH call, which I'm actually not sure how common that is. Like that would be good to have a survey on at some point, like which clients support this, or if this is now fully made redundant by ETH simulate, or we just have to if you can use ETH simulate, then you don't need this because you can just pretend that these authorizations happened by changing the state. Okay, I think we discussed it enough. Let's just continue because we need to get through all of these things. Get storage values method. This was added in Geth now. Sina has regenerated the tests. Is there any other client who was agreed to adding this?
Yeah, we added it in Aragon as well.
Okay.
I think Reth added it too, so
Oh yeah,
I think so.
was
It was
I
in
mean
one of their release notes.
yeah, I mean it says here Red has it. There's some, yeah, it was added in Aragon. Yeah, here Chase is giving the statement that he doesn't like the batching. Well, okay. Anyway, yeah, I don't understand.
I said I like the method because it removes the requirement to use a JSON RPC batch call.
Yeah, but I mean the batch code would be the same, no?
No.
No. Okay. I mean it's conceptually it's the same.
It is so I mean I can go over all the reasons why I hate batch calls if you want me to, but I did lay out some of the benefits.
I mean, yeah, definitely it gives it's more efficient. Yeah. If anyone has the need to read many storage values, that would be like the question how common that is. But I guess it is common enough that we are considering to add this method now. So yeah, I mean,
So the
certainly.
funny thing is, shortly after this came out, someone in one of the Reth telegrams was like, "Hey, I need to make these thousands of get storage at calls," and I was like, "Here, try this method."
Yeah, so it's nice. I mean, if it was already added, like I'm okay with it. Like I said, yeah. So what should I do now here? Like this should be merged, or this is this like good now, or does it require further consensus from anyone, or?
I mean, as far as I can tell, it's been implemented in most clients. I don't know if it's 100% of the clients, but it's most of them, and everyone seems on board. So I don't have a problem with it, but
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Okay, so basically it has here the storage requests, which is an array of the keys. And wait, is this schema actually correct? Because oh, I see. Yeah, so okay, you're right. It has the additional properties because each key in the object is, oh yeah, this is kind of fancy. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. The example is definitely required for this one though, like to really understand it. And then the return value is also like that, yeah? Just it gives the values. Okay. Yeah, well, that's nice. Oh, and empty request is not allowed? Is that like an expected?
I mean, it is, those are generated from RPC test gen.
I know. I'm just curious if this is, I mean, I guess Sina should now comment on this.
Yeah, I mean it's not useful for sure.
Yeah, it's just more like the question, like, should it be an error or?
I don't have a strong opinion on this. I figured that I mean I don't think anybody would want to do this, and if they did, it's a mistake and they should kind of realize it. But
Yeah, okay. I can get by with this, but then anyway, we have to at some point document. I mean, one problem is that this is not a documented behavior in the spec. And I mean, yeah, there's a test void, which is great, but it's kind
it
of
is required, so the field is, I believe, marked as required. Doesn't that make it
no, yeah,
the
I mean,
request?
that means that's a bit strange. Like you can't really like require it to be
Yeah,
non-empty.
okay.
That's not
I
how.
know. I don't know how I can express these semantics
You just have to put it to
in
the
this.
summary, or
Okay.
just like in the comment. It just has to say like this should not be empty, just so we have a reference of it in the spec. Because I mean, yeah, we have the test, so that's good. The test kind of clarifies the semantics of it. But then we get into these kinds of debates again, like, oh yeah, Geth has it like this, so that's why we have to do it like this. I don't like this. That's the thing. We have to. It has to be more like specified, or maybe there is actually even a way in JSON schema to express this constraint. Although I don't know how to do that myself. And seems the JSON schema experts are not on the call today. So yeah.
Yeah, I didn't give it too much thought, but I also didn't think of a better way to express this.
Yeah, somehow it would be nice to at least have something.
Do you want me to add a comment?
I mean, as in like a comment, as in like text to the spec.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I meant. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm not sure. I think it will require some. I mean, I will merge this it looks okay to me, and it's like one of these things where we basically just have everything in one PR, which is pretty nice. We have the test generator, we have the test, we have the spec update, like all in one PR. That's really nice. Like that's kind of how it's supposed to go now. But so I like this, but definitely we should be more precise in spec here. Okay, let's go to the next one. We have allow zero safe block hash and finalized block. Oh yeah, this is, I think, kind of an important one. The engine API people are still discussing this. I would weakly prefer not to mess with the engine API semantics on this call, because the engine API is kind of a sensitive thing. Like with the earlier PR, I agree it was more like a deep fix and some old method. Like I'm okay with that, but when it comes to these things, they need to figure it out on the consensus layer side first. We cannot preclude this decision here. And either way, Mikhail is able to also merge it. So they are able to just make this change if they require it. This may be also a general thing for the future, that like when it comes to these engine API decisions, they are kind of more strictly bound to the ACD consensus than just RPC API changes. ETH capabilities discovery, I think it's too big to just make a quick decision on this. There is some discussion has happened. Chase says he doesn't like it. Sina seems to at least like it somehow. The author is giving some compromises. Maybe
If I may,
Sina and Chase, you can take it away and just talk a bit about it.
So I didn't like it originally because of the way that it exposed configurations of the nodes, and he's since broken it out into two separate ideas. One is like, hey, an admin namespace that might do that, and I said, okay, but good luck. This PR, as it stands right now, is focused almost entirely on the node responding with its pruning settings, basically. And so I don't really have a problem with that. I think it's interesting. I think it could be useful for a lot of use cases. And this particular use case DRPC has is like a valid use case. But making a decision on whether or not it's good or not, I think, like Felix, you're a core dev for Geth. So like I would love to have your opinion on whether or not you think this is viable and doable. And then Sina, I know you have comments as well. So go ahead.
I mean, it comes down to what we have discussed a couple times before, that I originally also had an idea to add an endpoint that would respond with the node's current sort of like tasks, which are a bit beyond just the syncing, because we have ETH syncing right now, which has a sort of unspecified response. Basically, it's just supposed to tell if the node is syncing at all, and then while it is syncing, it is supposed to report on the progress of that. But how this progress is actually reported, like what goes into the progress and what constitutes syncing, is very hard to capture. So I was at some point hoping that we could add an endpoint that would give information about what the node is currently doing. Like, for example, if it's indexing the transactions, some tool should be aware of that. Like it should know that, yeah, currently transactions are not available from this node because it is still like doing something related to the transactions, sort of. But then we don't really have a good way of capturing this in the current API. I mean, another thing would be to make certain API methods unavailable until the respective index is built, or things like that. Kind of goes back to these, like, for example, in HTTP, we have this like resource unavailable type of status codes where it's, it might actually come back online later, for example. Whereas it's not like, it's different from not found. Like if you now, for example, query a Geth node with get transaction by hash and it returns null, you don't know, was this transaction pruned, or is it still like figuring out where this transaction is, or is it just like legitimately not existing in the world? you just cannot know these distinctions from this return value. And I think this method is a step in the right direction, but I think it warrants further discussion also among the clients, because when I proposed my method, everyone was saying, yeah, this is just way too deep, and like every client is totally different anyway. So how can we ever find any common ground on like how this can be documented? I do think that now that this approach is kind of better because it kind of reports it from the API point of view. So, and this would be my input in this. It basically has to, whatever is reported through this method has to be relatable to other methods in the API. So it somehow should say that like this node can currently serve ETH get transaction by hash in this range, for example. And then that's useful from the API perspective because you can know exactly, yeah, okay, I cannot call ETH get transaction by hash right now on this endpoint because it is not available. So, and I think that's what they want also. It's just that they encoded it here in this. So we have to basically come to some kind of abstract model of the node here that works for everyone. And I don't think we can just do that right now. But so this is something that would have to be discussed in a wider call with other people. Here they have some kind of, they are also talking about the deletion strategies and things like that. I think that's maybe not the right way to do it.
Okay,
Because
but what they're trying to achieve is not what you were envisioning, and all the ETH syncing stuff that you just went into is not their objective with this particular method. With their objective with this particular method is to determine the oldest data available on the node and its pruning strategy. That is their objective for this method.
Yeah, I understand it. What my point is just that this kind of changes over time. Like this is it even like whatever they come up with probably isn't going to capture all the nuances of like the data being available or not available. It's not as simple in the nodes as saying like, yeah, we have it up to this block. Like sometimes it is, but like sometimes it's not. So then it's like we have to find a model that really captures it, or we have to figure out like how we can relate it back to the, like, for example, what does it mean when it says TX? Like, for example, here they have TX disabled, for example. What does that mean, for example? Does that mean
I believe
like,
that means that it cannot serve get transaction by hash queries.
exactly. So that's what this means, but we have to document that somehow. Like that is something that we have to talk about. Like what is the meaning of this? Which operations are affected by this? When it comes, I mean, we are the definer of these API methods. So we have to make sure that there is some kind of, I mean, in our heads, I mean, it's perfectly clear that, yeah, get transaction by hash requires an index. So you have to have that index. And if you don't have that index, then this method is somehow not operational. But this knowledge has to be surfaced somehow into the specification. And it's the same with the logs, for example. Like the log indexing, it has more things than just like are the logs there or not. You can also have like the index goes only back that far, but you can still actually query it further in other methods and things like that. So I would say that
Can you perhaps give a concrete example of how this model would not be sufficient? Like
I'm mostly just saying.
My understanding of it is that basically it defines these resources that are common between all the nodes or all the different clients, and that you can get or access through the API, and because all the clients are moving towards partially keeping them, then it becomes kind of crucial for the users to find out what the node they're interacting with is storing in their database. And this is what we came to as with regards to the list of all such resources. I couldn't think of any other resource here. And then like, yeah, you have to cover different strategies because sometimes the node is storing the full history. Sometimes they have it, let's say they have pre-merge data in case of block and receipt. Or they have this window strategy that they keep only the latest 90,000 blocks. But yeah, I think like one of the things that I guess one of the assumptions here is that the node has to be synced, and any of this um, any of these assumptions are kind of false if the node is still doing the sync. But
I mean,
other than that,
I like the
Mhm.
model where it's about the resources, but what I'm trying to say is that this requires then more anyway. I mean, first of all, we have to document it way more. Obviously, it could also happen after merging the PR, but knowing ourselves, this is kind of a big effort that is like coming up here. We would basically, there would have to be at least a document that explains why these resources are there. Like, you know, we can add like a README or something. Nowadays, we actually have a capability of putting more text in the documentation side for these kinds of things. So there is actually the way now to have here these docs, like either here or in the API, we have the methods, and inside of each method, we actually have this markdown file that would explain more about the method, for example. So we would need some kind of document that specifies, okay, these are the resource types, and this is what this resource type represents in terms of the API. And I think that would be like, for me, the minimum thing that really has to happen for this method is that, yes, it's good to have identified these abstract resources, but we have to specify the impact of these resources being available or not available on the API, and also maybe go more into detail about what, yeah, in general, like what it means to have this resource available. And then finally, I would say with this deletion strategy or this oldest block, most resources in Ethereum, at least when it comes to the historical data, they are somehow related to the block ranges. So I think overall it's a good idea to define the availability of these resources as a function of the chain history. But I mean, one of the things is also, for example, here's the state resource. That's a good question. Like, what does that actually mean? Like, probably this means get balance or something, yeah?
get balance,
And
ETH call, basis.
yeah. Okay, so then basically it's like for get, what we would return here is that the state would be available for the last 128 blocks. So every time you query it, it would give you the oldest block, which is like head minus 128, and then or something like that. And then it would give deletion strategy window retention blocks 128. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Unless you're running an archive node or
Yeah,
you
then you would
manually
have to run it.
configured Geth
And then
to.
for the try nodes, I mean, this is also kind of nice, basically, but this is already getting a bit, I wouldn't really call it try nodes. Maybe you could call it like state proofs or something. So that's like a resource. And yeah, you can have that in a different window now. But for some archive nodes, it's tied with the state. So it's like, I mean, I get the idea. I do think that this like deletion strategy with the window and so on is a bit strange. We could just give like a list of block ranges, for example, and I think that would be enough. Right? I mean, if we give away the strategy here, then it's a bit strange, because then we have to be able to capture any node configuration somehow by the strategy. And for example, in Geth, for some of the things, like for example for the blocks, we can have kind of this like spotty history where like certain ranges are available and other ranges are not available. And this cannot be captured by any of the strategies here, right?
Oh, if you have imported the error files.
For example, if you have
Some
some
of them.
error files and some, yeah, so stuff like that. And then it already becomes a bit sketchy. And who knows what's going to happen, like, you know, in the future. Maybe there's going to be more things like that, or the protocol will require us to keep only like a sparse amount of history for some reason, or they can. So I think this is a bit like of a slippery slope with defining these strategies explicitly, and it would be better to keep it simple and just say we have like lists of ranges which we have currently available. And
I think the only issue I get what you're hinting at. I think the only issue I have with that is, let's say with state, you say, okay, we have the block range n minus 128 to n. Then, but this is a moving target. It's like every block it is updated.
yeah,
and
exactly.
It's hard to capture that in the result unless you specify that it's a kind of window delete strategy.
I
So
understand
I
it. I mean, that was like the intention behind it anyway, because they can basically query it once, and then they will just apply, like on the load balancer, they will take this definition and then they will just apply it for themselves. Basically, they will have a corresponding model on the load balancer side that models the node's behavior given this strategy. So this is, I mean, this is coming from the load balancer author. So obviously they want to know, like, right away for every request, is this request going to be available on this node? They don't want to always call ETH capabilities before calling anything. I understand that. So in that way, it also kind of makes sense. But then it's the question why the oldest block exists, like I would say, because I mean, if you just have the strategy and you know we have always the latest, like 128, you don't need to know the oldest block. You can just compute it yourself using the strategy.
Yeah, I think then you would need to also expose the head, and this is something that I've been thinking about. Like, it would be nice to also return the head block in this in the result. And then
Yeah.
if you know the retention blocks and the window, then you can compute the oldest block available. But then the question is for other types of delete strategy, like in Geth we have the pre-merge pruning. Then that's a question like how do you convey that result?
I mean, I think ultimately what for the load balancers, the best solution would be one where you have this as like a subscription, where you access the node, you open the subscription, and whenever this like availability of the resources changes, you get a notification about it. And that way, whenever a new block comes or like the indexing is updated, it will tell you that like this resource has a changed availability now. Like we could even make it like that. We can give them like these like per resource availability updates all the time, so that when, for example, the change in TX indexing is requested, it will basically give it an up-to-date view all the time. And then the thing is, from the load balancer's point of view, it is acceptable for some requests to fail, especially since almost all requests are anyways read requests, which do not have any kind of adverse effect if they fail. So if they happen to query the wrong node, which has already moved on or deleted a resource after having delivered the availability update, then basically they have to repeat the request with another node. But that's okay. But then we just have to make sure that the API is capable of distinguishing between these cases. So for example, for transactions, instead of returning null, if the transaction falls out, that's kind of the issue. We cannot really, especially for transactions, we cannot distinguish ourselves between, is this transaction truly unavailable or was it just deleted from the index? We just don't know that, basically. So that's the unfortunate thing then, that like if they happen to query the transaction at the wrong time, it may just have fallen out of the index.
Right. With the transaction, it's hard for them to know which block it is in any way, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a special case. So we can just, I think we can ignore this problem for now. I would still say that like long term, it would make more sense as a subscription, or I mean, it does kind of, but I think the discussion is very valuable, and definitely I like it a lot better than my idea of exposing the like processes that are going on in the node and instead going via this route of modeling the abstract resources which are required to serve the API. I think this could actually lead to a very viable thing that really helps the users to determine if these requests will be successful or not. And I mean, in general, we can only ever define the resources which are needed to service the API. So, I mean, the question then becomes like, is it possible for all the clients to give updates about the availability of these resources, or does it totally not match what other clients are doing? But I think it seems pretty obvious to me that like all of these things are basically, I mean, one thing that isn't here is the block headers, and I think that's a good thing, because with the block headers is always a bit special. Like block headers don't really exist for the purpose of the RPC API, but they do exist as a separate concept in the protocol. So it's kind of the good thing here that it doesn't actually have that as a resource, for example. because then it would be confusing. Then we would have to define, yeah, what does it mean for the block headers to be in range, but the blocks are not in range, and all the clients would have to behave the same with that. So I think it's good the way this is defined is nice. But we have to take it forward another time. I feel this is not gonna just go in now. Okay.
As
So
for concrete feedback for what we can do, I think you suggested renaming trinodes to state proof, and I think there was something else that I'm forgetting.
yeah, well, I was more thinking that it would be nice. Like your idea was nice with like giving the head block, and also having. And then I was saying like maybe it should be more like a subscription, because then it's maybe more acceptable for the load balancer to also basically always instead of receiving the strategy, just receiving like the up-to-date values from the node. Because they would just like whenever it actually changes, they will get a notification. And then, yeah, there's still the possibility of some requests failing, but that will always exist even if they simulate it on the client side.
Okay. Yeah, we can I'm gonna write these on the issue on the PR, and we can take it forward.
Yeah, thank you. So this was it for the PRs. We have a lot of these outdated and stale PRs. I don't think we're gonna get to them, to be honest.
I just posted one in chat. I think it can be merged. It's just a one line.
Yeah, that is easy. Yeah. Yeah, that's easy.
I have another one that I think can also be merged.
Yeah, I just posted it for you.
Yeah, this one exactly.
Yeah. I also have another one. This one.
Oh, it's nice. Uh-huh. Okay. I mean, yeah, so this is fine, yeah. I think. Okay, so we got that one. So now what was the other one? Okay, so there was 763 fill ETH simulate V1 test with max used gas.
We already added this field to the spec, and we didn't fill the tests.
Oh, so is it currently failing to fill like here on the, because I think it should now be filling the tests on the CI. So it's a bit weird that it's not failing. Because as far as I understand, it should.
It's probably because the Geth version is not updated, or
Did you update it in this one?
wait.
Not really. So
no.
This is a bit. I would say.
Also, I didn't add the. Sorry, I think I also forgot to add the generator.
Yeah, but it's still. I mean, that's why. So, but no, is it adding new tests?
No,
It's
no.
modifying.
No,
But
it's
that's
just
a bit weird.
yeah.
I would say we have to investigate why is the test not. Why is the CI not failing? I mean, I think we are basically we might not be actually filling the tests on the CI. For sure. I think that was like supposed to be like a goal, but maybe we didn't actually end up implementing that. So
I mean, I haven't seen any CI updates the tests. I don't know. When at what point would the CI update the tests? During the PR?
It's not about that.
When
It's about detecting that this update modifies the tests in a way that isn't like basically what we want is for the CI to tell us that you are modifying the tests, but the generator would overwrite your modification later. So basically
but I think the generator is updated. So I think the generator is updated.
But not in this PR, no?
I think it's possibly that the generator doesn't need to be updated because it doesn't have the return object.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I understand it, but I mean, still, is it like if I run the generator on the main branch, is it gonna produce this modification, and you are just giving this modification as a PR, or if I run it on the main branch now?
That is my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like if you have the latest version of Geth and
yeah, but
run
the
it
latest
against.
version of Geth, this is something. The Geth version is. Let me see.
I mean, to answer your question, Geth is failing the JSON RPC compat tests in Hive,
Yeah.
right? It's not 100.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand that, but then, okay. I'm just filling the test locally now and seeing if they change. And on the main branch. So if they don't, then this PR requires a further change to make it actually like repeatable. Yeah, I understand that Geth is failing him now. So basically that means I'm not sure, but let me see. So the tests are outdated, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I will verify it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then what was that one from Mercy? There was another one.
758.
TX pool namespace spec and generator. Yeah. Okay. I guess you guys. Mm. Yeah, the textual summary I think is a bit weird, to be honest. This I mean, do you really think we should specify this? Especially if we have the other one. Like that's the thing. If we have like TX pool content, why would you need this TX pool inspect? I mean, this was like a hack added for Geth like a long time ago. I understand that maybe it's useful for some people to call this or so, but this should never have ended up in any kind of like public API, to be honest. Like this format is just, I don't think we should have that in the spec. And also here it says that the string is actually not standardized. Yeah, I think this we can't have the inspect basically, because that's just we shouldn't standardize that one.
Okay, so I should get rid of that.
I think it's more the question of like what people get out of this. I mean, this was added because basically it gives the crucial information about the transaction, which is for some people this is genuinely what they need. So we can talk about it here. I mean, we're a couple minutes over time, but I guess whoever is here doesn't really seem to mind that much. So we have TX pool status, which just gives the count. So you can call this, but the information value of this method is very low, I would say. I mean, yeah, it's useful to see if the transaction pool contains any transaction. Sometimes that's what you need to know. But yeah, most of the time, I mean, maybe you want to know the actual transactions here. So then you go in here and you get this like huge value. So basically the amount of data you're going to get from the TX pool content method is very large and is going to give you all of this information, like what's the gas limit of the transaction, who is it from, what's the transaction hash, what's the input data, what's
I
the
mean,
nonce,
but
like
we all know this. I think the point here is documenting what all of the clients already do. The only one who says like had any questions is Besu, because like is the point here to re-implement the spec, or is the point to document what already exists, what clients are already doing, and what all the RPC providers already report back, and
Yeah.
then make sure that all the responses match?
yeah,
Or
but I mean, like
we're
these
doing
responses,
something
we can
different.
never like. I mean, this is just we cannot even test these responses if it's an implementation defined string. I was just kind of trying to like
Yeah.
lay out a little bit what's the reason why this method exists, like txpool inspect compared to the txpool content. So I was gonna get there very soon, but I mean, I know it was maybe a bit too lengthy what I went into, but my point was more that like there is some kind of spectrum of like verbosity of response, and like for txpool content the verbosity is very high, and then for like txpool inspect the verbosity I would say is like medium, like it gives you the hashes and it gives you some amount of the information about each transaction, but it doesn't give you all. Like here it only has the sender and then it has a breakdown of the fees. So this response is like specific to Geth maybe. So it's like another client could return some other info here. So that makes it completely unusable, except for like, for debugging the client, which would put it more to the debug namespace or something. Like it's not, I don't think we should specify a method in this namespace that like, is only for debugging the clients and gives like a unreliable response. So in a way, I'm a bit.
But like, what would your proposal be then, to just not document it, or to go into Go Ethereum and be like, delete this method? Because I don't know what the alternative is.
I think the alternative is like, this has always been our thing, is like we have to, for example, also with eSimulate and so on, just like we have to drive the process forward to the point where we are able to come up with a method definition that captures what users really want to do with these outputs. And then we have to make everyone implement the like improved version of the method that actually does what people want to do, instead of like documenting hacks in Geth from like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like this is
Okay.
this.
I understand what you're saying, but the problem is trying to get people that know clients seems to actually like have an input on this. It's pretty difficult.
Yeah, I mean, we can kind of like infer it a little bit. Like, for example, like I think the main thing is if you have txpool content, it's basically the same as having txpool inspect. You get more data from txpool content. So if you have the content which has a structured output that gives you the, I don't really fully understand what is this with the strings here. Like this appears to be some kind of like priority or something in the txpool, or I don't know.
So the
Like if
strings are more like the match what Get has in its implementation. So
yeah, exactly. So that's what I meant. It's like basically we're back to just like, like replicating what Geth has. I understand that like, yes, it can be valuable to like capture it in the spec somehow so that there's at least a spec for it. But I think also we have to see that like what we have in Geth isn't always, like the best thing in the world. It's just like, honestly, sometimes it's just nobody really, like from the perspective of having like a standardized API, this is never how these things were supposed to be used. It's like sometimes literally these methods were added because someone was just in the middle of debugging something. So they just added a little method to like print it out. And then like years later, people started using that method for like production purposes. And now we're in the current setup. That's not, but I don't think then the spec process has to necessarily repeat that. I understand that it feels like progress to just add the method to the spec because then it's added and everyone's using it. But I also feel like we have a responsibility here to actually ensure the API is like sane and we're not just specifying all this like weird stuff that we're going to have a really hard time removing later. Like we're just cementing it in.
Okay,
Felix, I agree with your take here, but then I would suggest maybe you could move TX pool inspect in a GEF private namespace, something like GEF TX pool inspect. We have some of them in Aragon under Aragon namespace, and I
Yeah.
think it makes it more clear that it's something specific of the
No,
node.
that's true. That's true. I also definitely think that, like, especially with txpo inspect, but also some of the debug methods, the stuff that has been added there over the years is not good, and it has led to the situation where, for example, it is technically totally unsafe to enable the debug namespace to anything, but still people require certain functionality from it. So then they have to filter the methods and do all these things. I understand that this is a thing that should be fixed for sure. So, but here I am more arguing from the perspective of the spec.
Yeah, and I agree on that 100%.
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely this one is here giving oh, so they have the nonce. Yeah, okay, I understand. Yeah, that's a bit crazy actually. So this the whole thing is like this map is basically keyed by the sender address on the first level and then by the nonce on the second level. So if you have more than one transaction from the same sender, then instead of them being an array, you can directly access them by the nonce. I guess that kind of makes sense, like in some ways. Yeah, I think we could. It's actually not just a priority. It's just like gives you it gives you like a direct access by nonce. I think that's okay. Like the content method is probably okay. Yeah, the pagination. I also agree that it's not really valuable to have the pagination, because we cannot freeze the TX pool content in a meaningful way. It's always going to be a snapshot. But yeah, I mean, can we just agree not to standardize the TX pool inspect? Like, is that a reasonable thing, or do you guys really want to?
I agree with that, but then I would suggest to move it in another namespace so it won't come back in the future.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean,
That's true. This would be on us in Geth then to do that. So that's something for sure.
Yeah. So like I could just speak, from my experience at QuickNode RPC provider is like if Geth supports something, then we have to support it. You know what I mean? And like if we have to support it, but then we want to run Aragon or whatever, then and like we can't, right? Like that's the situation that people find themselves in when they're running RPC services, is that if Guest supports it and the other guys don't, then it ties their hands, right? And so
Yeah.
so that's where I'm coming from, is like, yeah, I fully agree with what Tulio's saying, is like if we're not going to document it, then it needs to move.
I mean, I'm okay with moving it. I'm okay with breaking people's usage of TX pool inspect.
Yeah.
It is not. It is going to create some disruption for sure. We will have to make sure that people have some kind of fallback. But the fallback is, I mean, TX pool content is like superior in many ways. And the only way where it's not superior is if the transaction pool has so many objects that requesting them all through this API is too much. But then what we should have is like another version of TX pool content that just gives less data, which I think what people are using with TX pool inspect is it gives them a very quick way of seeing which transactions are the top paying ones based on the fees. So it basically gives you an overview of transaction hashes, the sender, the nonce, and the fees, right? Like that's, I think, what this is about. Or is that even, does it even contain? I'm not sure what it contains. Anyway, I think it just, we have to, unfortunately, I think, defer it. The points were very good, and I mean, I'm totally on board with adding the specification for this namespace. Just with this inspect method, I think it's kind of bad. And it will be bad in the testing as well, because then we always have to resort back to the spec only tests, which, I mean, in this case, the spec only test will be kind of perfect, but it will basically just say, yeah, it's a string and that's it. We don't actually know what's in it. So here it would have to say spec only, because then it doesn't check the actual text. Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you. We will take care of the remaining PRs. It wasn't that many. So yeah. Okay. I think we should end the call now.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.